As we start to dive deep into monetization strategy, we first want to start off with model channel fit. So far we know that our model is more than just how much we charge. It's how you charge, when you charge, what you charge for, and the amount you charge, your price. And as we piece these four things together, we end somewhere up on the low friction to high friction end of the spectrum. A model with ads is lower friction than subscription. Freemium is lower friction than charging upfront. A low price point is lower friction than a high price point. But depending on how we piece these things together in different combinations, we can put different types of product and businesses on this spectrum. Instagram, for example, being free, ad-based, $10 ARPU, right, would be a low friction model. Workday is an example, which you charge up front. It's an annual subscription, typically 6 figures or more per year, obviously very high friction. But what we want to be thinking about is how do we balance our model with our different acquisition channels, specifically the cost and the influence of our acquisition channels. And to explore this is what we call model channel fit. Model channel fit is where your model enables or disables certain acquisition strategies. To explain model channel fit, we can construct what we call the model channel fit spectrum. On the left-hand end of the spectrum, we have low model friction, where we need to align it with low-cost channels. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have high model friction, where we need to align it with high-cost channels. And that's because typically the higher cost the channel, the more influence it has on the user, and as a result, gets them over that model friction. But those two things need to be balanced and aligned. So to show some examples, we could think about low CAC channels like virality or user-generated content. We can see a lot of different businesses here have low model friction. Facebook, WhatsApp, Yelp, all free products monetized via ads. As we move across the spectrum, we can think about companies with higher model friction, something like DraftKings or Dollar Shave Club, which is either transactional or subscription. And as a result, they use slightly higher CAC channels, things like paid advertising, to help influence users and get them over that hump. If we go to the other end of the spectrum, we can think a lot about mid-market businesses, things like HubSpot, Zendesk, which has $10,000 ARPU. They're typically subscription, higher model friction. And so we need to use higher CAC, higher influence channels, such as B2B content and inside sales, to get our target customer over that model friction. And of course, on the very end of the spectrum, we have things like enterprise sales, things like Palantir and Workday that are selling 6-figure, 7-figure, multi-year deals, right? Incredibly high model friction. And as a result, we have to use incredibly high influence and high CAC channels, which is enterprise sales. So we can think about this more specifically in the case of Slack and how changes to our model could increase friction and cut off or disable different types of acquisition loops. So of course, Slack's model is subscription, it's freemium, and they charge per active users, but they charge and they start off with a free account. And as a result, they have a very low friction, low CAC channel. They use a lot of virality and have a lot of viral loops in the business, which make it very powerful. But let's say, for example, we switch just one component of our model. Rather than it being freemium, we make it a free trial. This increases the friction and totally changes the dynamics of their model. And as a result, this would disable or cut off or really disempower their viral loops if all we got was something like a 7-day or 30-day free trial. Freemium, the lower friction model, really gives Slack and Slack users the time to get engaged with the product, as well as generate a lot of those viral loops, pulling other customers into the product. So if we went back to that model channel fit spectrum, one thing that you might have noticed is that in the middle, there was sort of like this empty zone. And this is what we call the danger zone. This no man's land in the middle, the danger zone, is a particularly troublesome point. If your product ends up here, what ends up happening is that there's too much friction in the model to use the low CAC, lower influence channels at scale, but the model doesn't support the economics of the higher cost, higher influence channels. You kind of know if you're in the danger zone if you end up having to cobble together 7 or even more channels. You're getting a little bit out of each channel rather than finding 1 to 2 channels that have a lot of meat, a lot of upside, and a really high ceiling. This model channel fit also exists for different product tiers. We could think about the product LinkedIn as an example, which has had the time to layer on a bunch of different components over the years of their existence. Now, of course, they started off on the left-hand end of the spectrum with their free product using both virality as well as user-generated content and SEO to really drive acquisition. So here we have low model friction using low CAC, low influence channels. But as we move across the spectrum, you can see that they layered on a product such as LinkedIn Premium Jobs. To drive users here, they use paid advertising, sometimes on their own internal paid platform or external. But over time, they've also layered on B2B and enterprise products such as Sales Navigator and their marketing solutions. And in order to drive customers here, they have to use things like inside sales, B2B content, or even enterprise sales because these products have much higher model friction. Subscription, a lot of times paying up front, much higher price point. And as a result, they use higher CAC, higher influence channels. To take this a little bit deeper, we can tell a story from my days at HubSpot, where we introduced and developed a product called HubSpot Sales Pro. It was designed for individual sales professionals, and it was an aggregation of different time-saving tools like email tracking, email scheduling, as well as a number of other features that helped sales professionals. When we started, we had 2 different layers of the product. We had our free version of the product, as well as $10 per user. And we found a lot of acquisition that aligned with these models via virality as well as paid marketing. At about a year into the development of the product, we were doing very well, and we wanted to introduce another tier to the product. We started it off at $25 per user. After we introduced that tier and spent months trying to grow it, what ended up happening is we realized that we were in the danger zone. We weren't getting people to convert very well. The economics of using content and inside sales were too high, right? The costs were too high compared to what we were getting out of this plan. And so we ended up in this no man's land. So as a result, as we developed over time, we ended up shifting this tier of the product to a higher price point, introducing higher model friction. But at the same time, what it helped end up enabling was these higher CAC, higher influence channels of B2B content and inside sales. And as a result, we had alignment around model channel fit in this product tier, and that product tier ended up taking off. So in summary, once again, model channel fit. Model channel fit is about how our model friction enables or disables certain acquisition strategies. Model channel fit produces what we call the model channel fit spectrum, and we can make sure that we're aligned with the cost and the influence of our different acquisition strategies. And what we want to watch out for is this danger zone where our model doesn't support the low CAC, low influence channels or the high friction channels. In the next lesson, we're going to start exploring the next model fit, what we call model product fit.